Once upon a time, in a quaint little village nestled between rolling hills and lush green fields, there lived an old lady. Her hair was silvery white, her eyes sparkled like the morning dew, and her smile radiated warmth that could melt even the coldest of hearts. She was known throughout the village for her kindness, wisdom, and unshakable happiness. The villagers loved her deeply, often seeking her guidance or simply enjoying the comfort of her presence. One crisp morning, as the sun bathed the village in a golden glow, a young man approached the old lady. His face was lined with worry, his youthful vigor dimmed by the weight of life's challenges. He sat beside her as she worked on weaving a colorful tapestry, her delicate fingers moving with practiced ease. "Grandmother," he began, his voice soft but tinged with curiosity. "Why is it that you are always so happy? No matter what happens, I have never seen you upset. Don't you ever feel sorrow when life takes a turn for the worse?" The old lady paused, looking up at the young man with a gentle smile that seemed to hold 1,000 stories. Her voice was calm and soothing, like the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. "My dear," she said, "life is a tapestry of moments, some vibrant and joyous, others dark and somber. Happiness does not come from what happens to us, but from the light we nurture within ourselves." The young man furrowed his brow, his confusion evident. "I don't understand," he admitted. "How can you remain happy when misfortunes strike? Surely you must feel pain, just like everyone else?" The old lady set her work aside and turned fully toward him. Her eyes held a twinkle of mischief as though she was about to share a treasured secret. "Pain is inevitable, my boy, but suffering is a choice. I have learned to embrace every moment, good or bad, as part of the story that shapes my life. Even in sorrow there is beauty if you know where to look." The young man looked at her, his heart stirred by her words, but he still yearned for clarity. "But what about the times when everything feels unbearable? How do you find happiness then?" A soft chuckle escaped her lips. "Even in the darkest storm," she said, "there is a chance to dance in the rain. Let me show you something." She reached for a delicate rose from the nearby garden. Its petals were soft and fragrant, but its stem was covered in thorns. "This rose is beautiful, is it not? But to hold it, you must accept the thorns. Life is much the same. You cannot have joy without accepting the struggles that make it so precious." Her words lingered in the air, resonating deeply within the young man's heart. As he watched her, he realized there was a certain radiance to her, a joy that seemed to emanate from her very soul. He couldn't help but smile, feeling lighter than he had in days. That evening, as the sky blushed with hues of pink and orange, the young man walked through the village, his spirit lifted. The old lady's wisdom had ignited a spark within him, one that he carried with him wherever he went. Though the old lady's words had been simple, they had awakened a profound truth. Happiness is not the absence of pain, but the embrace of life in all its beautiful imperfections. The old lady, her gaze distant yet warm, began to recount a deeply personal story from her past. Her voice was steady, yet it carried an undertone of vulnerability that drew the young man closer, as though he were being led into the most sacred chambers of her heart. "When I was young," she said softly, "I had a family, a loving husband and 2 beautiful children. We weren't wealthy, but our days were filled with laughter, love, and simple joys. My husband was my soulmate, my rock, and every moment with him felt like a gift. We would sit under the stars, his arms wrapped around me, and dream about the future. Our love was pure and passionate, the kind that makes your heart race just thinking about it." She paused, her eyes glistening with the memories of those tender moments. "But life, as it often does, tested us. One fateful day my husband fell gravely ill. We did everything we could, but we didn't have the money for the medicine he needed. I held his hand as he grew weaker, whispering to him how much I loved him, praying for a miracle. But it didn't come. He passed away in my arms, leaving me shattered. The young man leaned forward, his own eyes moist with empathy. He could almost see the scene she described, feel the weight of her grief. "It was the saddest day of my life," she continued. "I cried until it felt like there were no more tears left in me. For months I was consumed by sorrow, convinced I would never feel joy again. My bed felt empty without his warmth, and the night seemed colder and endless. How to be happy in every situation. An old woman's story, English story with subtitles. Her voice, though heavy with emotion, carried a quiet strength. But as time passed, I began to see things differently. I realized that my pain, as deep as it was, could not bring him back. My children needed me. They needed a mother who could guide them, love them, and remind them of the beauty in life, even without their father. Slowly, I started to rebuild myself." The young man was captivated, his heart aching yet inspired by her resilience. The old lady smiled faintly, her expression a mix of melancholy and hope. I began to notice the small joys around me, the sun rising each morning, the laughter of my children, the feel of soft grass beneath my feet. I started living not just for myself, but for the love I still carried for my husband. It wasn't easy, but I learned that life is a balance of light and shadow. She looked directly into the young man's eyes, her words resonating with a profound truth. The bad moments in life will always come, just as the good ones do. But it's our choice whether we let the darkness consume us, or whether we find the courage to let the light in. Even in loss, I chose love. Even in pain, I chose life. Her words lingered in the air like a gentle embrace, and the young man felt a new sense of clarity washing over him. He saw her not just as an old woman, but as a testament to the power of love and resilience. Her story wasn't just about loss. It was about the courage to find beauty in the aftermath of heartbreak, to live fully despite the scars. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the village, the young man couldn't help but feel a deep admiration for the old lady. In her wisdom, he found a spark of hope, and in her story, he discovered the strength to face his own challenges with a renewed perspective. The old lady's voice softened, her smile deepening with an inner peace that seemed almost unshakable. "My dear," she began, "every morning when I wake, I make a promise to myself. I say, today is a new day and I will find something, anything to be happy about." She paused, letting the words sink in, then continued. "Some days this is simple. Perhaps the sun is shining through the trees, or I notice a delicate flower blooming in the garden. Other days it takes more effort, but even then, there is always something. A kind word from a friend, the laughter of a child, or the way the wind dances through the leaves." The young man listened intently, his brows furrowed in thought. But what about when something truly terrible happens? When it feels like the world is falling apart? How can you still find happiness then? The old lady tilted her head slightly, her expression thoughtful but unwavering. "It's not easy," she admitted, her voice tinged with the wisdom of someone who had endured many storms. "When bad things happen, I remind myself of one universal truth. Everything passes. Pain, sorrow, even the darkest nights, they don't last forever. Just as the seasons change, so too does life. Time has a way of softening the sharp edges of grief, and in those moments, I hold on to the belief that better days will come." She leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to an almost conspiratorial tone. "Let me tell you a secret. When you allow yourself to look beyond the pain, even if only for a moment, you'll find flickers of light, a memory of love, a glimmer of hope, or simply the realization that you are still here, breathing, living. That's where happiness begins. Not in avoiding the bad, but in finding beauty despite it." The young man felt a warmth spread through his chest, as though her words were not just heard, but absorbed into his very being. He couldn't help but smile faintly, though he still had questions lingering in his mind. The old lady noticed his hesitance and chuckled gently. "You're wondering if it's truly possible, aren't you? To feel joy even when life feels cruel? She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch firm yet comforting. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice, a choice you make every single day. It's allowing yourself to savor the small moments, the softness of a lover's kiss, the way their hand fits perfectly in yours, or the way their laughter lights up a room. Those moments, fleeting as they may be, are what give life its richness. Her eyes sparkled with a playful glint as she added, and sometimes it's the stolen moments that make life truly worth living. A secret glance, a touch that lingers a little too long, the thrill of knowing that in a chaotic world, there is someone who sees you completely. Those moments, my dear, are treasures no hardship can take away. The young man felt his cheeks flush, both from the intimacy of her words and the clarity they brought. He realized that happiness wasn't a destination, but a journey, a collection of moments, choices, and the resilience to embrace life in all its imperfections. As the old lady leaned back, her gaze drifting to the horizon, she said, almost as if to herself, "Life is a dance, my boy. Sometimes it's slow and gentle, other times wild and passionate. But if you let the music guide you, if you trust that the rhythm will carry you through, you'll find that even the hardest steps are worth it." The young man, now deeply moved, felt a newfound sense of courage blooming within him. He looked at the old lady, not just as a wise elder, but as someone who had lived, loved, and survived, someone who had found a way to thrive despite the challenges of life. The old lady's voice softened as she spoke, her words weaving a delicate tapestry of wisdom. "When things go wrong," she began, "I remind myself of a simple truth. This too shall pass. No matter how dark or heavy a moment feels, it is never permanent. Instead of dwelling on the pain, I focus on the good things I still have, my health, the warmth of my friends, the beauty of the sunrise, or simply the miracle of being alive. These small blessings anchor me, reminding me that even in sorrow there is light." The young man, his heart stirred, listened intently as she continued. "Happiness, my dear, is a choice. Life gives us countless reasons to be sad, but it also offers us treasures, if we choose to see them. You can focus on the bad, on what you've lost, and drown in that sorrow, or you can choose to seek out the good and let it lift you. It's not always easy, but it is always possible." Her words carried a weight that seemed to settle into the young man's heart. He thanked the old lady sincerely, feeling a newfound clarity. As he left her modest home, the golden hues of sunset washing over the village, he resolved to put her wisdom into practice. From that day forward, he made an effort to find something good in every situation, no matter how small or fleeting. On days when he felt overwhelmed, he would pause and let his mind wander to the beauty around him, the laughter of children playing in the fields, the gentle caress of the wind on his face, or the sparkle in the eyes of someone he cared for. Even in the darkest moments, he clung to these fragments of joy. In time, the young man realized that his perspective began to shift. Challenges no longer felt as crushing as they once had, and he found himself smiling more, even when life didn't go as planned. The old lady's wisdom had planted a seed within him, and as it grew, he began to radiate the same quiet joy that she had. The old lady's story soon spread throughout the village. Her words carried a magic that touched everyone who heard them. People started to look at their lives differently, understanding that happiness wasn't about wealth, status, or even avoiding hardships. Instead, it was about how they chose to see the world around them. Couples began to rekindle their love, holding hands under the starlit sky and whispering sweet promises to each other. Friends found joy in simple moments, sharing stories, laughing over silly jokes, and comforting each other when things got tough. Even strangers began to exchange smiles, finding connection in the shared journey of life. The village transformed into a haven of warmth and positivity, all thanks to the wise old lady who had shared the secrets of her resilient heart. People understood that life's challenges were inevitable, but so was the potential for joy. They embraced the idea that true happiness came not from the absence of difficulties, but from the ability to find beauty amidst them. And so, the village thrived, its people carrying the old lady's wisdom in their hearts. They learned to live fully, to love deeply, and to find happiness in the smallest moments. For in the end, they realized happiness was always within their grasp, waiting to be chosen, nurtured, and cherished.